Scary story for eternal sleep. Pleased to introduce to you a horror story, Lemur. Have you ever seen a ghost? That was James' first question. After 2 years we met again. I haven't seen it yet, but I believe ghosts are real. I answered, lifted the cup of coffee to my nose, and took a light breath. James took a small sip, then gently put it down. James looked at me with thoughtful, somewhat scary eyes. He knows I'm collecting ghost stories, stories about real witchcraft. That's why he asked me if I had ever seen a ghost. If I were free, would I like to listen to the story he's about to tell below? It is related to the devil and has no end in sight. A story related to ghosts that he experienced. Normally, James is a guy who doesn't like to joke. It's a serious person. But I have never heard him talk about stories related to spirituality, gods, or demons. Of course, I also know that a while ago, about a year ago, James' family had to run around looking for an exorcist. Friends all said that James had bad luck and lost money in business, so he had to find a shaman to relieve his bad luck. I only know a little about that, because that same year James bought a quite large villa, located separately on a hill. The front of the villa looked straight towards the sea. Of course, I've never been there before because I'm in the north. The villa that James bought is located in the city of Houston. When he just bought the house, James called me, but because I couldn't arrange the time, I didn't come in yet. Not long after, we heard that James's family was busy traveling everywhere to find an exorcist and ask someone to relieve the curse. Since then, the two of us have had little contact. I remember one time, looking through James and his wife's villa, when James posted a photo on Facebook. At that time, I even congratulated and complimented that the villa was very beautiful. Looking at the eyes of a person who has a stubborn nature and does not believe in spirituality, but now, when mentioning the devil, there is a slight look of fear in his eyes. I smiled and said, I remember, you often said that the stories I collected were just lies. What made you change your mind like that? If a person like you mentions ghosts, I believe you must have gone through something very scary. Tell me. James looked at me with a worried expression and said, when you hear this story, remember not to be curious and go find out if it's true or not. Because it's really scary. I have had to live with ghosts for nearly a year. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became silent. I'm focusing on the upcoming story. James began to tell the story that made him believe in what the devil is like. James and his wife discussed buying a villa in Houston, so that his whole family could be closer. Because before, James was a Chicagoan and bought a house in Chicago. After that, James met Mary, now she is his wife. Mary is from Houston, so the couple also wanted to have their own house, so that every time they went there, they would have a place to rest. With his real estate work, it was not too difficult for James to find and buy a dreamlike villa. Above all, the price was cheap, so after seeing the house, James decided to buy it immediately. Buy a new, spacious house, located in a place with open air, facing the beach, and at a very cheap price. After buying the house, James organized a housewarming event to invite friends and relatives to congratulate him. Starting from here, a series of horror stories happened, that no one could explain. To tell everyone more, James and his wife have a son, who is 5 years old this year. That night, after eating and drinking, everyone went home. Only his parents came from outside Chicago, so they stayed over. The 2-story villa has a European-style design, with 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and a living room. The kitchen is designed simply but extremely modern. The living room is designed with transparent glass doors to look out to the sea. In front, there is a small yard, planted with some types of flowers. More specifically, the villa also has a basement for storage. It must be said that the designer of this villa is very sophisticated. Having a beautiful house, James was overjoyed. That night, James arranged a room for his parents to sleep on the 2nd floor. They were drunk, so the whole family decided to go to bed early. James and his wife live on the 1st floor, next to their son's room. That night, at about midnight, suddenly his mother ran down and called at the door of James and his wife's room. Wake up, James. James's wife opened the door, frowning slightly and blaming her mother. It's late at night, why are you knocking on the door so loudly? The pale-faced mother asked her daughter. Today, besides mom and dad, Are you inviting anyone to sleep in the room next to mine? Mary replied firmly. There's no one there. My friends have all gone home by car, Mom. I went up there at night to clean both rooms, so Mom and Dad could choose which room they wanted to stay in. I've prepared all the blankets. At this time, James heard the sound of talking. He also wandered towards the door and asked, What's wrong, Mom? Mom, do you need to get something? Let me get it for you. His mother still doubted her daughter-in-law's words. There are so many people tonight, who knows who might have gotten drunk and gone there to sleep beforehand. How do we know? James, there's someone in the room next to me. But it keeps nailing something to the wall. From 11 o'clock until now, there has been the sound of a hammer hitting the wall, clack clack. I cannot sleep. I called your father, but your father was sleeping soundly like the dead, not knowing anything. But every time I closed my eyes there was a knocking sound. James scratched his head and looked at his mother wonderingly. How could that happen? In this house, it's just Mom and Dad with us. Let me come up and see for you. At night like this, Mom must be dreaming. But if someone hits the wall with a hammer, I should hear it, right? James quickly ran to the second floor. James's parents' room door was still open. Inside, James' father was still snoring like the sound of pulling wood. The next room is dark. The door is closed. Putting his ear close to the door, James listened quietly. Is it true that someone is hammering into the wall? But of course, there was no noise. The window behind James was slightly ajar. The night mist and sea breeze blew through the narrow door, making quiet sounds, making James's skin crawl. He put his hand on the doorknob, but the door was locked and could not be opened. James poked his head down the stairs and called his wife. Mary, bring the door key up here for me, I can't open it. Mary and her mother hurriedly ran to the second floor. Suddenly there was a thin hand. James clearly felt the wrinkled, rough skin of the hand placed on his neck and shoulders. He was startled. James almost threw his head down the stairs. That hand quickly grabbed James' neck and pulled him back. It's late at night and you're not going to sleep yet. What are you calling so loudly? But where is your mother? It turned out that it was his father's voice. Maybe just now, James called too loudly so he woke up. Or maybe he woke up but didn't see his wife lying next to him. It's the same with older grandparents. If they don't see each other, they get worried and look for each other right away. James breathed a sigh of relief and said, Dad, you startled me. At least you should have spoken up. I was sleeping when my mother came down to my room and told me to wake up, saying that there was someone up there in the next room. They kept knocking on the wall with a hammer. I went up to look but I didn't hear any sound. My mother and wife are holding the key up here. Mary ran up and gave the keys to her husband, then turned on the hallway light. James opened the door. The room was a bit cold inside. That's right, the house has not been lived in for many years. When buying it this time, James also had to do a lot of painting and repair. Because the villa is near the sea, its paint color is somewhat faded. There are many places where the painter said the stains look like old blood stains. Some people say it's the color of tea grounds. Turn on the room light. Inside the room everything is normal. The blankets, pillows, and mattresses that James's wife prepared at night were still neatly arranged on the bed. There is no trace of anyone chiseling here. James' mother looked into the silent room. She even came closer and touched the wall that was shared with the next room. Strange. The knocking sound was clearly coming from this side. I hadn't been able to sleep for a while when I heard the sound of hammering on this side, so I suddenly woke up. I even knocked again with my hand, and then asked who it was, but every time I closed my eyes, it knocked again. James's father is a retired soldier, so he never believes in things like that. Looking at his wife, he grumpily said, You're dreaming again. I'm still lying there. If there's a knock, I should be able to hear it. You are just scared aimlessly. But you are also really good. In this whole house, no one can hear anything, only you can hear it. Stop. Go to sleep. It's 12:30 and you're still standing here blaming hammers and charms. James and Mary burst out laughing when they heard their father say that to their mother. James's mother did not dare to argue, because she did not know whether she was dreaming or awake. Closing the door, James suddenly heard his son crying downstairs. The boy kept calling Dad. Telling his parents to go into the room to rest, James ran down to the first floor, opened the door to his son's room, and saw that the boy was still sleeping soundly. Gently turning off the light, James didn't want to wake his child up. Just now, James clearly heard the call Dad. Yet when he got there was nothing. Having a strong personality like his father, James didn't think much about it. James went out the door and saw his wife still slowly walking down the stairs. Mary's hand held the keys. She looked and raised her hand to her chin, thinking. Seeing James, she immediately ran down and said, "It's strange, I remember that when I brought the blankets and pillows to that room, I didn't lock the door. I also planned to let our parents see those 2 rooms, then they can stay in whichever room they like. Why is the door locked now?" James looked at his wife and shook his head. "You look like our mother again. The door has a latch inside. What if you go out and accidentally latch the door latch, then slam it shut? So the door is locked, right? Go to bed. It's just the first day here and I can't sleep peacefully." 1 o'clock in the morning, the sound of the wind blowing at sea. Occasionally there are strong winds, gently hitting the glass door, making rattling sounds. The villa is located halfway up the mountain, with trees surrounding it. So the light reflected from the sea surface makes it extremely prominent. The moonlight becomes brighter and brighter, making the white painted background of the villa even more sparkling. Everyone in the house had fallen asleep, so no one noticed. Indeed, somewhere in the room there was still a strange noise. If you feel interested in this video, please like this video, so I can make the next part.